This video is going to be a loose video essay of sorts, or maybe an audio essay. I really don't know how exactly I would describe this. But this video is going to be an essay of sorts that is a companion piece to my Destroy All Humans Big Willy Unleashed review video, which comes out at the same time as this. In my opinion, the first two games of the Destroy All Humans series were not perfect. I'm not going to say that they were. But I do believe that the good in those games heavily outweighed the negatives, and thus, they were still very good games even with their weaknesses. But in my opinion, Destroy All Humans Big Willy Unleashed is the exact opposite. Let's talk about why I think that. One of the big things that I found frustrating with Big Willy Unleashed is that the game couldn't seem to keep up with some of the smaller details of the continuity of the previous games, which creates some weird plot holes and continuity drift. Crypto in the game is incorrectly numbered as being Cryptosporidium 137, despite the fact that the opening cutscene of Destroy All Humans 2, which, keep in mind, was literally the game that came before this, explicitly establishes that Cryptosporidium 137 has died in between the first and second game, and that the Cryptosporidium we see from that point onwards is Cryptosporidium 138. Another weird detail is just the way Natalia is present in the game. She's heard on Crypto's communicator a couple of times, and during her first call to Crypto in Big Willy Unleashed, Crypto has evidently completely forgotten about her existence, despite the fact that Crypto and Natalia spent basically the entirety of the second game together, which is just strange. But even weirder, some of the missions throughout the game see Crypto trying to do something like trying to hypnotize somebody or some kind of thing like that, and then some random weird human-looking guy with an ion detonator keeps showing up and killing the person and screwing Crypto over before he can do what he needs to do. And when Crypto finally has the opportunity to kill this weird-looking guy, Natalia tells him to not do that, telling him that the guy is Blastomycosis, who is their half-human, half-Furon son that was born as a result of Crypto having sex with the clone Natalia at the end of the second game. Just to recap this for those of you who aren't getting what I'm getting at, Crypto had sex with a human, Natalia, thus producing another human, even though the series is called Destroy All Humans. You're gonna have an alien in the Destroy All Humans series create a human? Perfectly logical. That's just a strange turn that doesn't make any sense to me. Another gripe I have overall with Big Willy Unleashed is that the game overall feels shoddy and unfinished. Due to budget cuts and technical problems, the game ended up being a Wii exclusive, but it never really does a whole lot to make meaningful use of the Wii's unique Wiimote nunchuck setup. And since the game doesn't allow you to use any more traditional style of controllers available for the Wii, such as a GameCube controller, you're stuck playing a game that never really utilizes the Wii's unique controls all that well, and it doesn't provide you with an alternative for people like myself who just want to play with a solid controller. And due to it only being on the Wii, Big Willy Unleashed lost a lot of the built-in original audience that played the first two games on PlayStation 2 or Xbox. It's like the game just doesn't know what it wants to be or who it wants to appeal to. The graphics look horrible compared to the original two games, and faces are not animated at all in the game, even during cutscenes outside of a couple of pre-rendered cutscenes. And the game tries to hide it from you, thinking it's being really clever and cheeky by placing the camera at a weird angle behind somebody while they're talking. The sandboxes of the game feel particularly tiny, especially in the first one, Harbor City, a New York type of town which has an extremely noticeable and abrupt set of invisible walls. The story of the game is jarringly short, even by Destroy All Human standards. Most annoyingly for me, I think, is the voice acting for Pox and Crypto.
He stole my move. More educational programming, Crypto?
Yeah, this one's about anatomy. I wanted a show on human mating, but it's only the 70s, and these Earth monkeys haven't invented cable yet.
I haven't really talked about voice acting, or graphics for that matter, in my reviews up to this point, because honestly, I don't think that's really my area of expertise to begin with. Plus, you know, if it's good, there's not a whole lot I can say to explain why it's good. But you're going to be hearing Crypto and Pox for the entire game, so it's worth mentioning it. Because of pay disputes, J. Grant Albrecht and Richard Steven Horowitz did not come back from the first two games to reprise the roles of Crypto and Pox respectively. So, Locomotive and THQ had to hire horrific sound-alikes. It just all feels shoddy, and I get the strange suspicion that THQ were being irresponsible in their oversight and supervision of this project, especially considering that THQ paid the money to license YMCA by the Village People, which cannot possibly be a cheap song. What were they doing with the money for this project that they were able to license YMCA, but they couldn't hire the original actors of the two main characters, nor could they pay the studio to animate things or anything like that? It's just absurd to me. My last really big gripe that I have with the game is the humor. Humor obviously is a big part of the series. If you've seen my first two reviews of the series, you know that very well. There's a big concept in storytelling called show don't tell. Now, it's more of a thing for serious storytelling, but I want to bring it up in the context of the humor for this. To give you a rough example of what show don't tell is, let's say I'm writing a character named Fuckhead, and I'm trying to convey to the audience that Fuckhead is angry. Now, what's more interesting? Me telling you that Fuckhead is angry, or me showing it by writing a passage something like this. Fuckhead is frothing at the mouth, red in the face, his blood is boiling, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, shaking and trembling as his blood pressure and his heart rate increases. You want me to show you that, don't you? It's more subtle, it's more interesting, right? Well, it's more of a storytelling thing, like I said, but I think the humor in this game suffers because it often tells what you're supposed to laugh at rather than showing it, basically. A lot of the spoofs and references of the humor are too on the nose and just tell you the parody instead of being clever about it. Fantasy Atoll is obviously Fantasy Island. The hate boat is obviously the love boat. Colonel Cluckin is obviously Colonel Sanders. Not even a blind man could miss that. Viet Mall and its war are just Vietnam. And frankly, that one's not even much of a spoof in the first place. The other issue is that a lot of the humor in the game is repetitive and juvenile. Destroy All Humans 1 and 2 had clever and fun jokes, ranging from them lampshading weird story tropes and conventions, to cleverly satirizing McCarthyism-era America and all kinds of other stuff, while Big Willy Unleashed most infamously overuses the Big Willy joke. Big Willy is a euphemism for a part of the package, and Pox constantly goes on about my Big Willy when talking about the restaurant or the mech suit. It gets very old, and another annoyingly unfunny gag comes from the extremely lame New Hope reference during customer service. Basically, to sum up my thoughts on Big Willy Unleashed, long story short, the big gripe that I have with it is that it just overall feels short, rushed, lazy, and unrefined. The story is on such a small scale that really it just doesn't even feel like it matters. And the game is overall not particularly amusing, compelling, or enjoyable. And also, instead of using their budget to hire Albrecht and Horowitz to play the main characters, or using the budget to make other elements of the game be more refined and complete, some idiot, whether it was at Locomotive Games or at THQ, instead decided, hey, let's blow that money on YMCA. You know, a lot of the weirdness of this game feels like they were, whether intentionally or not, almost pissing on the grave of Pandemic Studios, and Pandemic wasn't out of business yet. That was the year after this, but it really does feel like an insult. Like they just didn't know what they were doing. and I am very annoyed by that. Judging by how this game was, it's no wonder the series is dead. And the sad thing is, Path of the Furon's supposedly worse than this. I haven't played it yet at the time that I'm recording this, keep that in mind. I'm not sure when I will play through it and prepare the review, but it will come, it will happen. Anyway, this was an audio essay of sorts about Big Willy Unleashed. It's a companion piece to the Big Willy Unleashed review, so hopefully you watch both of them, although hopefully you could also enjoy either of them entirely isolated from the other. So, I hope you enjoyed this, hope you checked the review out, but if you don't, that's okay, I'm happy you at least watched this. So, until next time, this is Arthur Wonderfluff signing out.